Meeting of Penn Township Board of Supervisors Wednesday, November 19th, 2014 will now come to order for the Devlin conditional use hearing stated for 6 p.m. That hearing is now open, and I would like to turn procedures over to Solicitor Wagner for him to ask the necessary questions.
Is there representatives of the applicant here?
Yes, sir.
Who is going to testify or present any kind of testimony?
I will, sir.
God, would you stand to be sworn at by this young lady?
Raise your hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Before we get to the hearing, is there any other person in the audience that intends to give testimony either in favor of or in opposition to the conditional use application? If so, please raise your hand. You have two gentlemen, you're in, I assume since you're sitting next to him, you're in support of it,
Correct.
not against it. Would you identify your name
Yeah.
and address for the court reporter, please?
Yep, George DeLellis, 609 Maple Avenue, Marysville, Pennsylvania.
Matt Fritz, 17 Pembroke, Pembrooke Lane, in Annville, Pennsylvania.
For purposes of the record, let me identify the following exhibits that we intend to place in the record as exhibits in response to the conditional use application. Exhibit number 1 is a 3-page document that's captioned Conditional Use Hearing Application dated October 2nd, 2014, applicant being named as Patrick Devlin, for purposes of a conditional use on property in Penn Township for the use of limited distillery and brewery and production of craft documents. Township Exhibit number 2 is an affidavit of publication indicating that the time, date, place, and purpose of this hearing was advertised on 2 separate occasions, November 6th and November 13th, in newspapers of general circulation. Exhibit number 3 is a letter from the Penn Township Planning Commission indicating that they voted unanimously to recommend approval of the conditional use. Township Exhibit number 4 is a letter from the Township Zoning Officer indicating his response and review of the conditional use application, noting that it would be up to the supervisors to make the determination that the intended use is of the same general character as listed permitted uses in section 604.14. We will note parenthetically that the reference to that section appears to be an error. It should be in reference to section 805 of the 804 and 805 of the zoning regulations of the township. Exhibit number 5 appears to be a multi-page document that's captioned at the top, Conditional Use Application Details. And in that document, there appears information concerning the following. 1, location and boundaries, dimensions of the land. 2, general circulation activities to take place. 3, the location, use, and ground area of proposed buildings and structures. 4, locations, dimensions of streets, loading areas, etc. 5, capacity arrangement controls for areas to be used for access. 6, character of the buffer area. 7, description of the proposed methods to control water pollution, fire hazards, traffic congestion, etc. 8, description of methods to be used for water supply, treatment, disposal. 9, names and addresses of adjoining property owners, and additional information characterized as in preparation for the referral to Penn Township Planning Commission. We will place these documents in the record, those 5 documents. Does anybody have any objection to the placement of those documents in the record? Hearing none, that will be placed in the record. Mr. Devlin, I believe you were duly sworn. The last document that we have is Township Exhibit number 5, that is captioned at the top, Conditional Use Application Details. Did you and/or someone on your behalf prepare that document? It appears to be approximately 8 pages.
Yes, sir.
Is the information contained in exhibit number 5 true and correct to the best of your knowledge? Was the document prepared in anticipation of complying with the requirements of the township, Penn Township ordinances as it relates to conditional use application requirements?
Yes, sir.
Do you believe that exhibit number 5 sets forth in detail the information that is necessary for compliance with the township ordinance?
Yes, sir.
Would you briefly describe in layman's terms what you intend to use this property for, please?
Yes, we plan to set up a craft beer brew pub at the location where we will make craft beer for retail and distribution. We will also have a craft distillery where we will bring people in to sample and show the distilling methods, and also distribute our spirits out of there as well.
Thank you. I will note that under the ordinance, the permitted uses in this district, which is actually a commercial district, include liquor sales, restaurants, etc. So it would appear to be somewhat in keeping with those permitted uses under section 803. One thing I will point out to you so that you understand the likely vote that we're going to hear tonight, there is some concern, as appropriately addressed by Supervisor Peters, that there may be some issues as it relates to the Code of Federal Regulations in your use of your property for both the sale of alcohol as well as the distilling on the same premises. So it is likely, and I don't know how they're going to vote, but it's likely that if they grant the conditional use, it will be conditioned upon compliance with all federal, state, and local regulations. So you need to be aware of that, because there appears to be, as a result of the homework that Mr. Peters did, there appears to be an issue that you folks are going to have to deal with, and I'm sure you probably know what that is.
Absolutely, sir.
Okay? As a result of the comments made by Mr. Devlin, testimony presented, and as a result of the exhibits, is there any questions that are from any members of the supervisors? Is there anybody in the audience that wants to ask the applicant any questions about this conditional use application? Let the record reflect that we have in the audience, in addition to the applicant and the 2 people that have identified themselves, approximately seven other people from the township, and that no one has indicated any desire to ask any questions or present any additional testimony, and there's no
Mr.
further.
Wagner, if I may, I do have a couple
Absolutely.
questions if you're,
Absolutely, you have an absolute right to do that.
okay. Addressing the issue there with federal regulation to being able to distill and have a micro, or have a brewery on the same premises. So you're asking the board tonight to, approve a distillery and a brewery, which right now, according to the information, that it's against regulations, on federal regulations. So are you looking at wanting to modify that, one or the other, or?
We have actually set it up with our law firm. It can still take place in the same building. They just have to be separated by one solid retaining wall. They can't share any internal connections.
Can I speak freely? Do I have to be called upon? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, no, if I can add something. There are also attorneys that are on retainer with the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board, and they're available to speak with anybody who has questions or concerns in the public, and we have spoken and corresponded with them as well, and gotten directly from them. It's also cited, I believe it's cited in one of the documents she sent us, but it may not be, that there can be no internal connection. Doesn't refer to utilities for the building, so it doesn't refer to gas, heat, electric, water, etc. Just simply, the ability for a customer to walk through an inside wall to both the brewery and distillery. That's what they're looking to provide. that.
Okay, this is out of the government website, and it states here under Title 27, Chapter 1, Subchapter A, Part 19C, 19.52, it says restriction location of plants. A person who intends to establish a distilled spirit plant may not locate in the following places: in any residence, shed, yard, or exclosures connected to a residence, on any vessel or boat where beer or wine is produced, where liquor is sold at a retail, or where any other business is conducted except, with exception of 19.54.
Right, and I don't wanna speak over you. Citing our conversations and the attorneys that we have on retainer, it is considered two separate locations. It's not the same location, technically, is what they're saying.
As long as it's a solid barrier wall in between the two entities.
Well,
Okay.
we know you're gonna have to be licensed by the LCE, number one, and number two, you're gonna have to comply with all federal, state, and local regulations. So that, assuming they make that as part of the condition, and a failure to do that, you won't be able to operate.
Correct.
If it turns out that your representation, I'm certainly not suggesting you're misrepresenting, but if the representation is in some way, shape, or form a misunderstanding or an error, the conditional use, if approved, won't allow you to open because you have to comply with these regulations.
Correct.
Understood.
Understand?
I have one other question for you. Have you got checked with the municipal authority in regards to the amount of discharge or how much, whether there's availability for the storage?
Yes.
Okay, so there's adequacy there for you for the type of stuff you're gonna put in.
There is, and I believe, based on the ratio of what we're producing to what would be draining out, we have to purchase an additional 2 EDUs. Is EDU the acronym? Okay. 2 EDUs, which we're prepared to do.
Okay.
May I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
What's the address on this?
1595 State Road, the daycare.
And who did you speak with at the municipal authority?
Was it Helen? No, Helen, you referred me to, was it Karen? Was there a Karen there?
There's a Karen.
Okay, there was a Karen, and then Karen spoke with a gentleman in the background who, they had a conversation while I was on the other line. I'm not sure of his name, I wanna say John, but I may not be right.
I ask this because to the best of my knowledge, this has not come before the municipal authority board, has it?
No, not unless it was presented.
So you're using current EDUs that it's established at that facility, there's no additional EDUs being purchased. So the municipal authority has not even determined whether or not your production and outflow.
I'm sorry, yeah, that was under the assumption that they were currently using 1 EDU. They never gave me a number as to how many
Okay,
EDUs the
so the
daycare
place
was
is,
using.
so right now, the daycare is established with 2 EDUs, but it's not been determined whether or not if you guys are going to use more than the outgoing of the EDUs. So
Correct.
therefore, now we have an issue that we have to get before the municipal authority.
Yeah, the way it was described to me by Karen, I believe, who I corresponded with, was that basically the amount that you pay would be held in an escrow and, or excuse me, not an escrow, but it would be paid to, and then if you ended up using more than you anticipated, you would pay an additional amount, or if you use less, in the case I think she cited with Sheets, where they over-purchased, then the money was refunded to them. So, okay. Oh, okay.
My concern is the capacity on that line.
That's what I raised the question for. You currently know that you have 2 EDUs for that? 150 gallon, I think when I was set on the board for, that'd be 300 gallon a day, you gotta have more use of that?
The ratio, typically you use twice as much to clean and cleanse as you do to produce. So the ratio is 1 to 2. With the gallons per day that we had calculated, which I believe is in the paperwork, it was estimated that we would need 3 EDUs for our
3
production. Correct.
Additional to what you have?
No, in total.
Total,
Yes.
total.
Yes,
Okay.
in total.
So you're looking at 450 gallons.
Correct, and that was with the buffer built in as well,
Okay.
just in lieu of us needing more water, for a certain.
That's gonna take care of both departments. Brewery
Correct, yeah,
and
that's for the
proposed-
entire premise, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
First Wednesday in January is municipal, no,
December.
December, excuse me, I'm sorry. I'd suggest you go to the municipal authority meeting and iron that out,
Okay, great.
okay? I mean,
We certainly would have done that first. I
Okay.
don't know if I missed that somewhere, but I felt like I was directed to this point
yeah, okay.
initially, so.
Okay.
Anything else?
Is that, yeah?
It'd be appropriate then to close the hearing.
Okay. This time I make a motion that we close this hearing.
I second the motion.
Motion made with second. All those in favor, consent by saying aye. Ayes have it, so ordered. This hearing is now closed.
Because the advertisement is such that you can do additional business, you don't have to take this down. If you're prepared to, you guys can vote on this right now if you want to. There would be 3 possible votes as I see it. Vote number 1 would be to deny the conditional use. Number 2 would be to accept the conditional use. Number 3 would be to accept the conditional use conditioned upon receiving all required licenses from state, federal, and local agencies, and receiving municipal authority approval sufficient for necessary permits to conduct the approved business there.
What I would like to recommend at this time here, I just have the 2 reservations. One, I'd like to be able to table this vote. One, for we get the municipal authority's recommendation on the EDUs per the output, and the usage of, make sure that you acquire the appropriate amount of EDUs through the municipal authority. Secondly, I'd like to just have clarification, though I'm sure your lawyers have addressed this issue, according to this Title 27, Chapter 1 of the 19.25 or 54 information that was given, submitted here, just for clarification of the production of the distillery / brewery, making sure that that is the rules and regulations, because it doesn't state that here.
Okay.
And I don't know if any state law would trump that, or if there's any other federal law that actually says separate facility means it's contained by walls and things like that. These regulations don't state that. So I just would like to have clarification, either from our legal department and from your legal department, showing that that is the fact, that they can be on the same premises as long as there's walls that's separating them from that.
Okay. Would something on a letterhead suffice?
Something from,
Well, I think the first order of business is, when's our next meeting?
Yeah, and I just getting that. I was gonna recommend to Mr. Peters, he wants to table this. Can this not be approved or voted upon, subject to those very conditions
You can
he's
if you
asked
want,
for?
you can.
And-
Yeah, you can do that
And
too.
if those
Whichever
fall
one.
through, then you can't have it. You see what I'm saying?
That's, yeah, that.
And,
you can
and
that
that'll
way, too.
keep the thing moving, but it gives you all the coverage that you need. You guys can't produce or proceed without that if it's voted upon that
I
way.
appreciate that.
Okay, now, back to these conditions, we make sure that we get them all in.
One would be, as Mr. Peters said, conditioned upon clarification that the nature of the use that's intended is permitted under federal law and federal regulations. 2, that conditioned upon the receipt of all applicable state, federal, and licenses from the appropriate agencies necessary to operate the business. And 3, they get municipal approval sufficient for the nature of the business that's going to be operated there, municipal approval for purposes of sewer. So when we talk about water, Sewer.
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 Because it's well water.
Sewer. And to clarify Mr. Hallman's point, if the vote is to approve it conditioned upon those three items that I just mentioned, and any one or combination of those items are not met, then their use is considered null and void.
Correct. And would have to come back with a modification.
You're exactly correct. You're exactly correct.
Okay, well, I'd like to move on with it, Rick, rather prolong it, and then we don't have to worry about the
That's
timeframe,
up to
okay?
you guys.
So I'd like to bring it before the board for a vote, hearing all those that choose to testify and offer their opinions out here, hearing no extreme objections from anybody in regard to this, and a recommendation of the planning commission from the township. I think we've discussed the pertinent issues on it. I'd like to make a motion for the board that we approve this conditional use subject to those very conditions, and everybody's aware of that, okay? I make that in the form of a motion.
I second.
Okay, motion with a second. All those in favor give their consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, so ordered. Thank you, gentlemen. You got some more?
Let me do one final thing on the record. There is no opposition to this, and we can do a findings of fact, conclusions of law, et cetera, or just give you the record that says it's approved. Do you waive the necessity to have the board prepare findings of fact and conclusions of law?
Yes.
Okay, no objection to not doing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you could just, probably the easiest thing to do would just prepare the transcript, get it to Helen, Helen can get it to them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do they have,
Regular deliveries.
do they have to sign it?
No.
Nope. No?